Together some of the lawsuits. Kennedy's firm is also putting together some of the lawsuits. Kennedy won a very important victory just a few months ago. Last July, he asked the Health and Education Department, the HHS and the federal level, to please provide copies of all of the vaccine safety reports that Congress mandated in 1986. And after months of hemming and hawing, HHS got back and said, "We're sorry to report that we've diligently searched our records, but there are no such reports." Well, Kennedy, being a really good lawyer, took that letter, put it into what's called a stipulation of dismissal, and made it public record as part of the ending of his Freedom of Information Act case. So we now have on public record the U.S. government officially stating there are no 1986 statutory required reports. Why is that important? Because back in 1986, the federal government took away from us our right to sue for vaccine injuries. That violates the First Amendment right of redress for grievances, but let's leave that alone for a while. They took away our right, and they gave an extraordinary privilege to the drug companies of never being sued for the damages their vaccines cause. But in exchange for that, they set up the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, which has compensated billions of dollars in injuries to children and others for vaccines. By the way, that money does not come from the drug companies. It comes from a special tax that people who are forced to vaccinate must pay. And they also required that new vaccines be safer than old vaccines, and that Congress receive a report every single year detailing how the new vaccines are safer than old vaccines. And I repeat, not one of those reports was ever given to Congress. So once we learned that from Robert F. Kennedy's office, Kent Heckenlively, the lawyer in California who's been very active on these issues, and myself and Dr. Rima Lebo got together and we filed a formal complaint with the FDA at regulations.gov, and we've asked the FDA to suspend all current vaccine approvals until the law is obeyed. And at the same time, we filed a petition with the White House saying to President Trump, you're obligated under the Constitution to see to it that the laws of the United States are faithfully enforced. What about this law? Nothing from the White House yet on that. But our action with the FDA is now legally pending. And under our law, before you can sue the government in court, you have to exhaust your administrative remedies. So what we've offered to Kennedy's office and to Patty Finn's office is the ability to use our petition, which has been maturing since March, as proof that we've exhausted our administrative remedies, and the only thing that will save us is a court intervening. What we want the court to do is to issue an injunction suspending the abrogation of the religious exemption. And I want to sketch here a little legal argument.
Ralph, hold one second, because we're coming up to the end of the program for some of the stations that are carrying us. But I have a very important question I'm going to ask you. It's going to take a little time. So we're going to extend our program up for those of you who have to say goodbye now. Well, we're sorry. Our guests, you can get more information from Ralph by going to vitaminlawyer.com. And also tonight at 7 o'clock on the Progressive Commentary Hour, I'm spending the entire hour talking about 5G technology and its health risks and threats to the environment. And I've got Dr. Deborah Davis on, the founder of the Environmental Health Trust. She's the one who testified before Congress. She's an expert on cell phone and towers risk, and also Theodora Scaretto, the executive director of environmental health, who handles public advocacy and initiates opposition to legislation policy supporting the rapid rollout of 5G. So we have to be able to know what the problems are in order to raise proper arguments. That's at 7 o'clock tonight. You won't want to miss it. Now, Ralph, finish what you were saying, and then I have a final question for you.
Excellent. There's an interesting link here. As I said, legislatures, back when they first made vaccine mandates, put in the religious exemption and the philosophical exemption and the medical exemption because people were complaining, we don't want this law to be so horrific. And now, decades later, they are slowly squeezing all of the exemptions out of the law. But that doesn't affect the right of informed consent, which is internationally protected. and has nothing to do with religion or philosophy. It has the right to say no, and it's an absolute right. Now, what's important about that is that if your informed consent is informed by your religious beliefs, you have, under the Federal Civil Rights Acts, a right to be protected. When someone acts under color of state law, and that's what these mandates are, of course, and violates your federal civil rights, you have the right to go to the federal government and complain. And the Trump administration has just set up a special office within HHS on conscience. And that office is the place where I believe everyone in New York State should go and complain. They need to say, I have an informed consent right to refuse vaccines. The state of New York is not allowing me to exercise that right. That right is informed based on my religious beliefs, and therefore it is one of the categories of civil rights that's specifically protected by the Federal Civil Rights Act. It's not just rights having to do with race that are protected, but also rights having to do with religion. And therefore, we can raise this issue from the issue of a state-level legislature, where we know how corrupt the legislature of New York State is, to a federal level where a federal judge has to say, you're violating the religious liberty of these individuals who are acting under their religious conscience and refusing informed consent. You know, wars have consequences, and one of the consequences of World War II was the enshrining of informed consent in international law.
Hello, WBAI listeners and supporters. Tune in Wednesday, June 19th from 7 to 9 p.m. for the second report of 2019 from the WBAI local station board. This time you'll hear from various members of the local station board. They'll talk about their responsibilities, recent developments throughout the network, and ask you for your ideas on how to build a stronger WBAI. So mark that date on your calendar, Wednesday, June 19th from 7 to 9 p.m., the second report of 2019 from the WBAI local station board, only on WBAI New York, 99.5 FM, streaming live at WBAI.org.
This is WBAI New York, 99.5 FM, and WBAI.org online. The previous program was The Gary Knowles Show, heard Monday through Friday at noon. Stay tuned for Leonard Lopez at Large coming up at the 1 p.m. hour, followed by the Tom Hartman program at 2 p.m. 3 p.m. is Sojourner Truth with Margaret Prescott, and this is your listener-sponsored radio station. It is now 1 p.m. Stay tuned for Leonard Lopez at Large coming up. Stay tuned.